Good morning, AAHOA. So welcome to my home state of Tennessee, the great state of Tennessee. So I'm thrilled today to be your moderator. I'm humbled to be your moderator this morning. I've had the opportunity to be on this panel the last couple of years in Philadelphia and in Long Beach, and I guess I've advanced to a moderator now after a panelist. So I do have one message to share before we get started. The AAHOA team backstage has told me that there's a glitch in the computer system, so we have to redo the gala night seating again. So, sorry, April Fools. I did see about 8-10 people walk out. Seriously, 8-10 people are running out just real quick to get a better seat. So we have a highly distinguished group of panelists here this morning, and I'm honored to introduce them on stage. So we're going to start out first and foremost with H.B. Rama, founding chairman of AAHOA, and founding chairman of JHM Hotels, and the president of JHM Hotels, H.B. Rama. And his nephew, president of JHM Hotels, E.J. Rama. Next up, we have the former chairman of AAHOA and the founding chairman of Noble Investment Group out of Atlanta, Bharat Shah. And his son, president of Noble Investment Group, Mitesh. And finally, we have the founding chairman of AAHOA, Nitin Shah of Imperial Investment Group, and his lovely daughter, Mili Shah. All right, good morning, guys. Welcome. Thank you for doing this. So, before we get started, I'd like to get a gauge of who's in the audience. So we could definitely relate to the questions and the answers. So if you can relate to first generation hotelier, could you please stand up? First generation. How about second generation? Second generation. Wow. You know, I'm really surprised because usually you guys don't get up this early. And let's give them a big round of applause for your support this morning. And then I have to ask this because we're going to talk about this. How about third generation? Who can relate to being a third generation? You don't have to be in the hotel business, but just third generation. Very good, very good. All right, so now we got the premise. So we're going to kind of tell a story throughout this panel. And so, out of respect, let's start with the first generation panelists this morning. You came to this great country with very little in your pocket, but the American dream. Very powerful, the American dream, right? You have incredible stories to tell. So, can we start by your stories, H.B. Uncle?
Yeah, I was born in Malawi, Africa, raised in India, in this country. When I first landed in San Francisco, I had $2 in my pocket.
It's the same $2 you keep showing me every day.
So this $2 reminds us where we came from, which we heard yesterday. Mike said that you never forget what brought you here as a successful hotelier in this country. I was chasing an American dream. My first job in life was dishwasher. I quit in 4 hours. Second job was a waiter. That's how this accidental hotelier was born. I first bought property in California. When I first bought property, I only had $8,000. $4,000 was sent by J.P. Rama, my brother, and $4,000 I saved money doing a job as a waiter as well as a staff accountant in Manhattan. That is how JHM was formed with $8,000 state money. $22,000 I needed to make a deal. So I had to borrow money from friends and relatives who was betting on 25-year-old accidental hotel that had no experience of hotel. So first lesson for second generation, you need to start having a trust, earn the trust of people that you are going to ask help from. Then I chased my second hotel, traveling through Arizona, Texas, and wind up in Buffalo, Tennessee. If you look in the map, you will not find it. Population 50 people, 2 hotels, 2 restaurants, 2 gas stations, 60 miles west of Nashville, 60 miles from here on the Interstate 40. That was my second property in this country. I was the first Indian to buy property in the state of Tennessee. I was MBA. I had a strategy. I want metropolitan area, good social life. I want to have franchise operation, big property, and of course, here I come in Buffalo, Tennessee, population 50 people. We made a lot of money then, 5 o'clock we used to fill up. This is in 1976. Then I went into buying property in Greenville, South Carolina. That's where we are based. Brothers joined in 1973, 74. MP Rama joined, JP came, and that's how we formed JHM Hotels. 3 brothers at that time, that's how JHM was formed. Over the years, we have bought and built more than 85 hotels. And currently, we have 45 hotels. In 1982, I decided to go to India and say we need to have a base in India to connect the second generation to India culturally and only through business. So we started building a hotel. In 1990, we opened a hotel there, 5-star, in Surat. It's a gateway hotel. And that's how the journey started. Now, this journey was not easy. And a secret to success in life is that you have to take chances in life. You have to explore. And entrepreneurial spirit is very important, which we heard yesterday. Shark Tank. Education helped me in my success in life. I was MBA, so it helped even more. So I strongly suggest second generation to really go after education in the area of hotel business. You don't want to be accidental hotelier because people like us in the first generation is sacrifice. Instead of buying Cadillac, we bought used sales Chevrolet. Instead of playing golf, we worked 24/7. This first property, we had two employees. We worked 24/7. So that's what the lesson of first generation that all of you need to understand. Ask your dad what it took to get where they are. So it is very important to Harvard Business School will not teach you this. By the way, I'm MBA, I'm in education right now. So I understand these things a lot better. But at the end of the day, it's a willingness to sacrifice short-term gain for long-term. Instead of struggling, you need to figure out how to overcome what comes in the way of success. And at the end, your efforts, your sincere efforts will make you successful in life.
Thank you. How about you, Bharat?
It just happens that this year, on March 9, I'm completing my 52 years in this country. I landed at the JFK airport on March 9, 1964, coming as a student to do my master's in food science and technology. And આપણે ઇન્ડિયામાં તે વખતે એમ્બેસેડર ફિયાટ સિવાય બીજું તો કંઈ હતું નહીં. નવાપુરથી આઈ એમ ફ્રોમ નવાપુર, ધોળિયા ડિસ્ટ્રિક્ટ, મહારાષ્ટ્ર. અને ત્યાંથી એક તો તમે એક તો ટ્રેન લો અથવા તો બસ લો. ઓનલી થિંગ આઈ ન્યૂ કે ધ બેસ્ટ વે ટુ ટ્રાવેલ ઇન યુનાઇટેડ સ્ટેટ્સ વોઝ ગ્રેહાઉન્ડ બસ. So from JFK Airport came to the Manhattan Greyhound bus station. Until Knoxville, Tennessee, the bus lane. Overnight, I ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee. A friend of mine that I knew from Wilson College, Bombay, he was already here. And I finished my master's. The grades were good. Received my scholarship from National Institute of Health to pursue my PhD at Utah State University. 3 years later, in 1968, I finished my PhD, went home, got married to my wife, Mili. We came to this country back again. I convinced my father that Papa, Mili ne khali ek જ વર્ષ મારે અમેરિકા બતાવવું છે અને પછી હું પાછો આવી જઈશ. કે ભાઈ સાંભળ્યું છે કે કંઈ ત્યાં જે દુનિયામાં કંઈ લાઈફ બધી કંઈક બધું જીવન બધું સારું છે તો કે જો મિલનને ગમે તો લઈ જાય. So we came here. 1969, Mitul was born. We were in New Jersey. I was working as a research scientist at Nashville. Worked there for 3 years. Then Arjun of Industries from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, got hold of me, wanted me to become the quality control manager for their foods. Hawaiian punch, mighty fine pudding, Chinese food, patio Mexican food. So we arrived in 1972 to Winston-Salem. And I'm working as a food scientist, pursuing my career, whatever I was doing. I realized that at the end of the year, the savings that I was making was $1,500 per year. That only came back as a tax return after I had paid the taxes. And because whatever the way the accountant was lining it up, there's a tax take that was taken care of his savings. एक के 2 વર્ષ 1550 બીજા 1500 કરે 3-3.5 હજાર થયા. એક ઇન્ડિયાની ટ્રીપ મારી એટલે પતી.
Did you understand?
So we started. Every 2-3 years we started from zero. मैं को हाला वाणिया नो कोयरो में के तो आવું नहीं चाहिए. You got to do something. थोड़ा વધારે પૈસા બનાવવા પડે. આવું નહીં ચાલે. So only thing I knew was India. Only thing I knew was food products. So I'm trying to import like what I knew, shrimp from India. Why? Because Reynolds used shrimp in their making shrimp chowder. The bean sprouts that you have in chunking, they are from and if you sprout karo 5 દિવસ એટલે પેલા bean sprout થાય. We used to use 1 million pounds of mung bean every year to make chunking chowder. So I went to India, and then my father and I, we went to Delhi. There is an agricultural export agency. Finally, બીજે દિવસે હવાના ઓફિસમાં પહોંચ્યા અને 10 by 10ની રૂમ. મેં કીધું આ એક્સપોર્ટ એની એજન્સી નથી. They would not allow me to export any food out of India. Now, I want you ladies to hear this from me. 5 years later, I became a shoe designer to import ladies' shoes that were going the best in this country, but they were made in plastic. And I wanted to copy them and make it in leather and cheaper, and then sell cheaper than the plastic shoes that they were being sold here at JCPenney and Sears. And I used to go and sit down in Agra in Madras, in Hyderabad, wherever the leather centers were. And I'll sit down with the mochi and go, Kaka, આ પ્રમાણે મને આમ કરીને આ ડિઝાઇન આ પ્રમાણે કરીને આવો. I brought the samples, sold the shoes, 5,000 pair, $8 a pair, wholesale at $16. Each shipment I will be doubling the money. 40,000 કઈ કરતા મારા સેકન્ડ મોર્ગેજ ઓન ધ હાઉસ ને રેનોલ્ડ્સના સ્ટાક બેંક લેકિન કોલાટરલ કરીને 40,000 में लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट मोकली 5,000 पेरा 8 गुणे 5,000 40,000 ની મારી જે કઈ હતી આખી સેવિંગ્સ વોઝ ઓન ધ લાઇન ઓફ ક્રેડિટ. શૂઝ આવ્યા તો કસ્ટમ ઓફિસરનો ફોન આવ્યો, ગેટ ધ ગાર્ડન થિંગ આઉટ ફ્રોમ હિયર. They could serve what happened. They are all molded. કારણ કે ત્યાં જૂન જુલાઈમાં બનાવેલા વરસાદની સિઝનમાં બોમ્બેમાં તે ભગવાને કાંથી મને કંઈ મગજમાં કંઈ કીધું આપણે કોઈ દાડો ધંધો કરવો નહીં, પણ એક્સપોર્ટ મટીરિયલ આવે તેનું ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ કેવી રીતે લેવાનો તો હાર્ટફર્ડનો ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ મેં લીધા. 40,000 પાછા આવી ગયા. મેં કહ્યું જયરામજી કે હવે મારે કોઈ ધંધો નથી. 2 years later, 1977, my very good friend, known Buddha from Daytona Beach, एक वक्त आया मैंने के भरत भाई कमर्शियल ब्रोकर था. वीकेंड में છે કે રાતના કંઈ બી કોઈ બી ક્લાયન્ટને કે તમે લઈ જાઓ તો કે જે બી પ્રોપર્ટી લિસ્ટ કરી હોય તો you can sell. It just happened that first property I studied for commercial broker and license, got the license. The first property just happens to be an independent hotel in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, about 15 minutes from my job, Winkler Moderator. So I got the listing. આપણે રહેલા કેમિસ્ટ સેલ્સ કરતા આવડે નહીં. 6 મહિનાનું લિસ્ટિંગ પૂરું થઈ ગયું and I could not sell the property. But meanwhile, the seller and I became very good friends. And when I asked him, I said, Mr. Myers, please, this 2-page, sign the document, give me 6 more months, I'll be able to sell. This is the man. This is the man who changed my life. He told me, he said, Bharat, Winkler is not for anybody else. You buy it, you're Winkler. I said, sir, I don't have money. I said, price is fine, but I don't have the down payment that you have. That you need. Well, how much money you have? Pehla 40,000, sochna baki. Same source, second mortgage on the house, and the rental starts for collateral 9 and collateral booking and loan is everything. I got $40,000. But try to bring some more and see if we can make the deal. He financed the deal. I paid like less than 10% down payment. Milan and I became the first time hotelier, a PhD in food science and technology, became an independent hotelier. Milan will drop off Mitesh and Raj at the school, elementary school, and she will manage the property. I'm still working at Reynolds just in case Pela Jura Jampeni Khai. 3 months later, we realized this is the place to be. I resigned from Reynolds. Aje par, my Indian friends and my American friends, they were thinking at that time in 1979, what a stupid thing to do. A PhD with 15 people reporting to him goes and runs an independent hotel income. So મારી સાથેના મારા જે 3-4 colleagues હતા એક દાડો lunchમાં, after I resigned, I was doing full time. Manager in charge, maintenance in charge, marketing in charge. So 4 jana જેવા, they were my colleagues at Reynolds. They came to see me during the lunchtime. And when they were just coming in from the back entrance, I had a toolbox in my left hand, and a plunger in my right. And Jerry Bloomquist, who was driving the car here, he closed the door, came down, he said, "God damn, Bart, what the hell are you doing?" I said, "I got to take care of a few things." "Man, you are a PhD. I said, yeah, that's okay. So, what are you doing with the toolbox? I said, "Well, I got to do some maintenance." "How about the plunger?" I said, "Room 502, I need to fix the commode." They are asking Milan, one of the guys, can he goes to the laundry room where Milan was. "Milan, do you have enough food on the table?" Milan did not understand where the question is coming from. I realized what the question was. What I did not tell them, ladies and gentlemen, what I did not tell them, कि मारी एक वर्ष की सैलरी आती $15,000 की मारी सैलरी आती सैलरी. I had made net cash flow in that 3 months that I was net profit. Every 2 years thereafter, the property makes so much money. Every 2 years, Milan and I, we were developing one more property. I would manage the construction, she would manage the interior decoration. And the number of awards that we have received for the interior decorator for each and every property from each and every franchise. You name it, we started from Days Inn, then the Comfort Inn, then Ikama Lodge. Each and every one that she did, the interior decoration, and she received each and every year the city award for the best hotel in town interior decoration.
Man of very talented. He's a research scientist, a shoe designer, and a comedian. So I move over Russell Peters. I think he got an next act. So, Nitin Uncle, how about you? And for the sake of time, I'm sorry guys, look, I could listen to these guys for hours. I think you guys can as well, right? Absolutely. Let's give them another round of applause here. So, I apologize, but we're going to have to move pretty quickly to the
I'm great. Listening to HP and Bharat, I feel like I'm second generation. I had a little bit of better luck. I came as a nuclear engineer, worked in a nuclear power plant. Every morning I'd wake up at 8 o'clock. I got tired. I said, Vanyama Bachcha is not going to carry tiffin every day and do this for the rest of his life. So on the weekend I'll go and start looking for business to buy. And all my roommates at that time were single. All of my roommates were PhD from IIT and University of Delaware. So they all thought I was crazy. They would go and play tennis and they would go play ping pong and whatnot. I was going looking for business. Every evening I come back, "Arey businessman aa gaya, so that was my story. I ended up working in nuclear power plant for about 5 years. And after the 3 Mile Island accident, the whole industry died. And one fine day before Christmas, the church told me, "Go home, this plant is closing." Under the middle of construction. So I literally went and started calling my brother-in-law, and they were all in this country, luckily. And they were running all independent hotels. I went there and I saw them running front desk, housekeeping, and I thought, geez, I'm MBA, I'm an engineer. Am I going to do this? I got really scared. I can't work 24 hours, 24/7. So my brother-in-law said, oh, सरकार ने कितना सही करा? अरे hotel independent nothing चलाया, so good. I said, just let me take a time. So I would take a map every day and run around in next door town, next to this, Georgia, and literally walk in the hotel. So, "You want to sell this hotel? You want to sell this hotel?" A couple of owners threw me out of the hotel. One fine day I went to this lady at the front desk. I said, "Ma'am, can I talk to the owner? I want to buy this hotel." She said, "Sir, can you get out of the door? Because the owner has a gun in his pocket." So I literally ran out of the hotel and he met me in the parking lot. He said, "Can I help you, sir?" And I was just trying to figure out, I heard this hotel is for sale. "No, this not the hotel is not for sale, but if you want to buy it, you can give an offer." I gave him an offer, called the Days Inn, and Days Inn in those days was like Hampton Inn. And they would not approve the franchise. Okay. I had to go to 14 different interviews. I had the hotel under contract. Could not get a loan.
Didn't want to get into independent hotels knowing what my brother-in-law was going through. So one fine day, luckily, because his elders was a broker and they used to, one of the partners used to own the hotel. And he said, I'll try to get you approved from Days Inn. Me and my brother-in-law sat in the hotel that was owned by Days Inn for 4 days, going from floor to floor to interview why we Indians should be buying a Days Inn. And after 14 interviews, they said, we'll think about it once you get a loan and once the deal comes to let us know, we'll see if we can approve the franchise or not. We proceed to the closing. The owner says, we'll figure out to sign the guarantee of the loan. And basically, on the closing table, Georgia Railroad Bank said, you're not going to approve the loan. The world is not going to stop running around if you don't buy this hotel. Unless the seller would guarantee the loan, we will not do the deal. So we obviously got very disheartened with the seller saying, why the hell did you bring us to the closing table? He said, no, don't worry about it. I'm guaranteeing the loan. We go to the Days Inn, and basically they give me this thick stack of paper to sign here, sign here, sign. Didn't know what I was signing. As it turned out, I was like third Indian franchisee of Days Inn. And right after I bought the property, within 1 month they failed my inspection. Luckily at that time, Mike Levin had just taken over. And I went to him, I said, what can I do so bad in 1 month that you fail this hotel? That was just past 1 month ago. He looked at the quality assurance report, the hotel was failing for the last 3 years. They had just passed it so they could sell it. That was the day I first came in touch with Mike Levin and I told him the amount of discrimination he was facing. The very previous day, I was in my office, there was a front desk next to it, a customer walked in and said, this is not a hotel owned by Indian. I really don't want to stay here. So my front desk got really afraid whether to say it's owned by Indian or not. If you say it, you'll run away. If my boss will get mad. So I just came out of the office and I said, yes sir. It is one of those hotel owned by Indian. Would you like to stay in this hotel looking at my face or would you look at the room? He got a little bit embarrassed. He said, okay, no, show me the room. I showed him the room. He didn't like the room. He comes out and goes to the front desk and almost reluctantly he ran into the room. Next morning he comes out and says, where is the gentleman I want to see? Oh, I'm sorry, I said there's by the way, my cardiologist who did my bypass surgery said, fine Indian doctor. So I told them you would trust your heart to an Indian, but you would not spend one night with an Indian man. So the intent meant to tell you what second generation you guys have today. Getting franchise, forget about franchise discrimination, forget about discrimination from banker, even the customer will discriminate. All this guy can attest, you know, front desk, they will see an Indian, they'll drive the Cadillac right out of the canopy and get out. So where we have come today, now you know why AAHOA was formed. This is exactly the reason that this don't have to go through this. Luckily, HP went to some same kind of discrimination. At the same time, I went and luckily we had Mike Levin at the right position at the right time, and we all had this experience almost simultaneously, and it happened, both of us visited them for different reasons, and there was the birth of AAHOA. That's how it got started.
Thank you. All right, so they set the stage, right? The first generation came with very little in their pockets and set this incredible platform for us to be successful. The second, third generation. So now let's talk about the second generation. You all grew up in the motel business. You literally grew up in a motel. I remember cleaning rooms, taking out the trash, and I said this yesterday, even checking in guests as an 8-year-old kid. And I never understood why people would pay that kind of money sometimes just for a few hours. And 4 or 5 years later, I figured that out. So that's the biology. So, if you could briefly share your experience, your journey growing up, and how you discovered, or I should say rediscovered, this business. Go ahead, DJ.
Well, first of all, this first generation, isn't it amazing? They have the mind, the heart, and the guts. And and incredible stories. So, the pressure is always on being a second generation because you're under the shadow of the first generation. And being raised at the Sunset Motel in room number 2, he and I were the roommates. We had 2 rollaway beds, and they kept on moving, and I would keep changing the design. He was married. And my job was to turn on and off the lights outside before going to school and coming back from school. And what this reflects is that there was a lot of hard work, and that means folding laundry. Surakanti and my mom would be cleaning rooms, and the worst thing that you would have is cigarette butts in a beer can, and you had to clean that room. And this tells you as a second generation that you never want your families to go back to where you came from. You always want to progress. And with that notion, you did everything in your power to make sure that you kept on building on the blocks that they built as the first generation. So that was a lot of pressure. But at the end of the day now, today my pressure is there's a third generation, my son. How do I transfer this hardship? Because they were born in a home. They don't even go to the hotel. They never slept in room 101. So how do you do that? That is our challenge as AAHOA and as families. How do we transfer that? So what I do, I send him to the hotel. I told the general manager, make him work, make him clean rooms, make him do vacuum, and also get in the pool and clean those tiles that we used to clean on the sides in the summer. And the second generation, as Mint and Mitch and all of us, we worry about how do we preserve the wealth, how do we transfer this wealth, and how do we grow this wealth. And that is our job as second generation to do that, and how do we have to give them life scenarios and life examples. So every day I sleep with that pressure. And we were sent to India to make sure we don't become an American-born confused desi. So we went to boarding school, so at least we can connect with our language. And I didn't send my son to school, but I send him there during summer. But I have grandparents that make sure that they'll give it the culture. So as second generation in this room, that is a strong challenge that we have, and all of us collectively have to work together to the stories that you heard, we have to transfer that to the third generation to make sure that the continuity still continues and the legacy continues.
Thank you. Thank you. DJ said this so well in terms of just kind of how we are at such a blessed point in our lives. The risks and the sheer efforts by our parents and our families to allow us to be in this wonderful country, to do such amazing things within this industry. The challenge for us is how do we continue to transfer that down to the next generation? And I think that's why this is such a great panel, because at the heart of all of this, I think the three of us, we talk about this all the time, which is really only our kids. I can't remember the last time we had a hotel conversation. It's really about our kids. What's interesting is that when you think about all of the first generation stories, and they're all very, very similar in terms of the risk they took to come to this country, the risk they took when they got to this country to go find a life for their families. It really gave us the ability to be in this business and to think about this business in the way that we have. And so our experiences are, we worked in hotels, we cleaned rooms, we did laundry, we did all this hard work, and it actually pushed us away from the industry, right? Because gosh, this is really, really hard. But the reality is it taught us the hard work, the disciplines, all the things that that we have in us today in order to allow us the success that we've had. So similarly, a story, and I think these are all transformational events. So 1979, mom and dad buy the legal motor, and I'm 10 years old, doing all the same things, cleaning rooms, doing laundry, etc. And there was a point in time where a guest was coming downstairs, and he was very upset because there was no sodas in the Pepsi machines. And this was an important life-changing event for me, because at the time, all I cared about was being able to go home from a day's worth of work that I didn't ask for, broke every child labor law that for me could be there. But at the same time, I wanted to be able to go to a Boy Scout jamboree at the end of the summer. So in that moment when I come downstairs to ask my father, one, can I go home? Two, can I go to the Boy Scout jamboree? This
guest is very irritable. And as opposed to taking an approach, which is how most of the time, I think parents and kids do, which is like, shut up, don't, leave here, can't you see I'm busy, can't you see I'm in a problem? They actually took a different approach, which was, this is a opportunity for me to learn. And in that way, my dad created a business opportunity for me. I built the Pepsi machines, I take the coins out, I take them to the bank, he and I form a 50-50 joint venture, and then whatever profits or at the end of it, I'm able to utilize for my own self. 50 goes to my family, and 50% goes to me. What that did is it changed my life. It made me realize the power of hard work, efforts, and then being able to actually be in business. So when I went to college, after another 8 years, as opposed to being a doctor, which is what my parents sent me to college to go do, and my head was about to explode in biology, chemistry, and physics classes, I found my way into these economics classes and finance classes that really allowed me to think about the world in a much different way. And so, as we pass forward, I think with you and BJ and I think about Mili, you'll be there, soon, is how do we create these transformational events for our kids, right? How do we give them the ability to experience life in the way that we experience life? And recognizing that it all really started with a dream that our parents had that manifested itself, that allowed us to dream boldly and to think about the things that we could do, and understand how much hard work, how much effort, how much family meant to that entire ability to move forward, and how do we transfer that? Because this is the first generation that will actually have wealth to transfer over. At our parents' stage, it was about creating a life for their families. Now that we've been able to take that and create these lives for our family and actually have the ability, what now for these next generation of kids who have grown up much differently than we have?
Thank you, man. So I remember growing up, my father would tell me that rather be a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer in Saudi Chokri Munson. And thank God that I did found good. So, Mili, I'm very interested in hearing your perspective because I'm a father of a 15-year-old girl and a 10-year-old girl. And sometimes I think they have more interest in Kardashians than me. And they rather text me than talk to me. This is an incredible, interesting generation, right? So, Mili, you're the resident millennial on the show. So I'd love your input on how you grew up and so forth.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So 22 years ago, when I was 6 years old, I was sitting out here in Opryland, tugging on my mom's shoulder, saying, "Mom, why are we here? Why is Dad on stage?" That was an AAHOA convention, and I remember it distinctly because Amitabh Bachchan came here, and everybody wanted to come to the AAHOA convention. And at that time, we were living in Days Inn, 3-story exterior corridor in Milledgeville, Georgia, south of Atlanta. And that parking lot was my bike path. That swimming pool was where I learned how to swim. And every day after I finished my homework, my mom and dad would take me to the lobby and say, "Count the cash in the door." That was my way of learning how to count change. And if you get it right, you get a breakfast donut. So, everything started for me way back in the early days, like many of us here. But, I have to preface by saying that I'm probably at least 10 to 15 years younger than the first generation here on stage, so my story is a little bit different. Mom and Dad always said education is number one because nobody can take that away from you. And so after we moved to Atlanta, I grew up there, went to high school there. I sent myself off to New York University, completed my undergraduate studies there, and then I said, okay, what am I going to do? I don't like medicine, I don't like science, engineering. All right, why don't I go to law and business school? So I went and enrolled in the JD MBA program here in the great state of Tennessee at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And in 4 years, I completed my JD MBA, and Dad said, okay, what are you going to do now? Because I don't really want you coming to work for me just yet, because I want you to go work for someone else first, so so you can understand the discipline and hard work, and then you can come and work with me. I said, okay, no problem. So naturally, as a lawyer, I went and worked in a law firm. Well, it just so happens that at this law firm, I was representing tons of banks giving out loans to all of you. So I was on the lending side. Here I am closing loans, but representing the banks that were giving all the hotel loans out to all the hoteliers. So I saw a very different perspective on the back end of things where you guys are seeing everything on the front end, how to go get a loan. Well, turns out as a woman, you know, my clock is ticking. They're like, all right, well, you're 26, 27, 28, time to get married. And so I got married and moved to South Padre Island, Texas. Raise your hand if you know where that is. You know, it was my husband's first convention here at AAHOA, and he said, man, this convention used to be featured on 60 Minutes. So I moved there. I said, you know what? I wear my legal hat every day. Why don't I go on the flip side? So I actually joined a bank, following in my father's footsteps, and became the lending director of a Texas bank, which I'm currently at. And I said, now I'm going to go help all those people go get all those loans. So I basically now I travel around Texas, meeting people, whether it's building their $20 million project or they're buying a $2 million hotel. And the best part of it is that now I get to be, I get to see the people that were once in my shoes. Just the other day I went to go visit someone in South Texas, and they were buying a Super 8. And the 19-year-old kid is the one basically negotiating with me. I said, son, I've been asking for the 2015 P&L for the past 2 weeks. You haven't said anything. You haven't given me anything. He goes, Miss Mili, I really don't want to show it to you. And I said, why not? He said, the number is so small at the bottom. I said, show it to me, show it to me. So it turns out he's getting his bottom number, and I know why. But I'm like, you got to add back everything in. Add back your depreciation, your amortization, your interest expense, and then let's calculate it. I sat with a 19-year-old kid trying to help him understand how he's going to finance this hotel. Never has bought a hotel in his life, doesn't come from a hotel family. But that's the true experience, is giving back to the community. Because here I am, having been basically born and raised and days in, but now I can go and give back to that one young kid, the millennial generation, who's like, you know what, I want to get in the hotel business. And so I think that's the power that we have. I like to say, I think there's almost 3 generations on this stage. And so it's up to us to get involved. It's AAHOA's responsibility to empower us. We are a large organization. We have the power to do anything, whether it's being in Washington, D.C., going to talk to franchisors. Yesterday we were all at dinner with Eric Jacobs and Marriott. And my husband and I asked him, we said, what do you think is the toughest challenge that you guys are going to face with this new generation? And he goes, they're too smart. And it's true, because we have the education, the communication skills, the ability to take our first generation's platform and bring it to the next level. We are so lucky and blessed, so now why would we do that?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn my daughter. So, Adrian, you have created this incredible family dynasty company. Brothers have come along so well over the years, and truly a hallmark of success. DJ, you've taken over the realms quite well. So, what is the secret to that success? Because there's a lot of family companies out here. There's a lot of brothers involved in companies, a lot of children that are joining, and nephews joining these companies. And you've done a remarkable job. So what has been that secret to that success? So DJ, if you want to add on to that as well, please.
First of all, you have to separate how you manage, interact as a family member at home or in society. And on the other side, how you take business interaction, understanding, responsibility, accountability. Both are having a different set of expectations. So when we are at home, we have to forget the business. When we are in the office, we have to strictly follow what you would do if you were not brothers or family members. And which we heard yesterday. Kevin already said, I practice same thing. And that put a lot of pressure on my brothers. Because I'm very strict, I'm very demanding, I expect them to do things. But they didn't, they followed it. So I was fortunate actually to have brothers who followed me. You know, when you take responsibility, when you take you become accountable for the success of the company, then you have to be a role model. You have to, I never started drinking, I never smoked, I never eat non-veg food. Not that I didn't want to do it, but if I started, the rest of the family will start. I was the first in this country. So I had to really do things to really create that model that is ultimately is good for everyone. So when we are in the office, you have to strictly run the office environment, accountability, responsibility, job division, functions. Everybody is given a role, and we leave them alone. They do what they know best, and then we have meeting, we work together. We also very strong personality. All of us are very strong personality. So I had to manage that strong personality also, which fortunately with my spiritual background, I was able to do a little better. I'm a woman too. I get mad, I get patient. So, but that's what makes life interesting, adventurous, and you enjoy what you do. I mean, that's most important. And also most important, that each family member has to understand their strength and weakness. They have to understand their weakness. So if somebody can feel that weakness, then leave them alone. But most of us, many of us, the problem starts when we say, this is my right, and it is your duty to give me something. And that is where the problem starts. We don't do that in company. If you work for somebody else, you don't say, this is my right. So why we do that in family business? So that's the thing. It's very difficult, but it is doable. We have done so far successfully, and we are providing now a platform for second generation to be independent, to create their own legacy, to say that they can take this platform and take to the next.
Thank you.
We've been studying a lot of family businesses, and what statistically shows 1983 of the Forbes 100 wealthiest family, by 2013, only 13 remained there. And there's a big challenge of how do you pass wealth. And the issue is, first of all, is how do you grow the wealth? How do you consume less? How do you increase your family talent pool? Meaning you have to have people that will take on the business. And the third most important is family unity. And there's something called regenerational path. That means, like you mentioned, second generation, to allow them to go into different businesses, diversify, take industry that's counter-cyclical to the hotel business and allow them to grow. So it's really important to plan that out. And statistically, by third generation, it's a very tough challenge to continue the family business. So each one of you should look back and say, what's the sense of purpose? Why are you in this business, and what are you trying to accomplish? And what do you want to do? And there's something called return on equity versus ROL, return on life. And are you happy with what you're doing? And are you getting a return on life? So you need to ask these questions within your family and try to say, what's my next path? What do I do with second generation? How do I create that next platform and the framework for them?
Thank you, BJ. So success is about happiness, right? It's about happiness. So Bharat, man of many talents that we've heard today, I failed to mention that he's also an author. So he wrote this great book called America, My Destiny. Can you briefly tell the audience your experience of this book and give some advice on how they can be more successful?
As you heard me in the first segment, I did not know how much time I was taking. And as you can see, I'm a storyteller. And every time I talk about it, my friends, even my boys, they said, Dad, write a book. It took me 3 years. These are all my words. America, my destiny. And I'm starting from the life in my town of Nawapur all the way to here, the growth. And what it is that for us, the first generation, this is our story. The book depicts, if you look at the book and if you read it, you will say, oh my God, this is where I came. This is what I did. So that's that part. Coming back to the transfer of business from the first generation to the second generation, as you mentioned, as Dave mentioned, about the vending machine business. This is where he started learning from the age of 12 how you do your business. Now, each one of us running an independent hotel in those times, we all knew that on Sunday afternoon and Saturday afternoon, when Mit and Raj were handling the desk, by 2 o'clock the housekeeping staff is gone. We waited for the 4 o'clock relief desk clerk to come in. So I saw this 2-hour time period, and it just dawned on me that I should teach my son at the age of 12 what a profit and loss statement is. So I'll give him the last year's profit and loss statement, and I'll tell him, increase the revenue by 5% for the next year, expenses by 3% for each category, the difference between the variable expenses and the non-variable expenses, the property taxes, the insurance, they remain, they are non-variable. The salary and everything else is the variable. And Bill Gates had not even formed, I don't know whether he was born or not, but he was about 7, 8 years old. There was no Microsoft Excel at that time. There were no computers. Only thing that Bill had was a little calculator in his hand. And within no time, he will give me the next year the projected profit and loss. And I said, son, run this for the same formula for 5 years. And what you get is a 5-year pro forma that when you grow up and you decide to come into the hotel business, and when you are ready to finance your project, the first thing the bank will ask you is this 5-year pro forma that you knew at the age of 12. Fast forward, he gets his degree in finance and economics, decides to join the company in 1993. He is the one who brought us to Atlanta. My company, that Miller and I, we had formed was Rama Corporation. So the Winkler was bought under the corporation name Rama Corporation. Everything else that we did thereafter was under Rama Corporation. When Mitesh and us, the family, came to to Atlanta, Noble Investment Group was formed. In 2 years, in developing 2 or 3 properties, a Hampton Inn Holiday Expresses, I realized that my son knows the finance better than me as a chemist know. I had developed 6 properties, I could not read the blueprint. He was reading the blueprint very clearly from the first construction. So I said, Dikra, tu ja agar, hun tari pasha. That was the transformation of the business at that time from the second generation to first generation. My message to both the generations today is that to us the fathers, to us the parents, make sure that your child goes to the right school, understands the businesses, and then when he proves or she proves that she has learned the business, trust them. Give them the rope and let them walk forward. You stay behind. The message to the second generation is that it is not your right to own your parents' business. You got to earn it. Show them. Show them that you can do it. And I have written in my book that we the parents, we the first generation have built the foundations for you. You the second generation, we expect you to build great structures on those foundations. And knowing your dreams, we know you can do it.
Thank you very much. So, Mit, your son Arjun is accepted into Vanderbilt, great school, great city. So let's, we've got about 5 minutes left on this panel. Look, I think we could spend another hour up here talking, right? So we have 5 minutes left. There's something very important going on afterwards. It's the debates and elections and so forth, and lunch. So Mit, and then I'm going to skip to you, Mili, and then let's give just a few minutes to talk about this third generation. Entitlement is an ugly word. Entitlement, right? They're not growing up in this business. So can you give a few parting words on how they can achieve success?
Sure. I think all these stories really tell you just what's beautiful and special about our community. I think for all of us, family is more important than anything. We've all been blessed to be in this business in this country where we can create the life that we had. My dad just said this right. There was no expectation for me to step inside this business. I didn't feel like I earned it. I didn't feel like it was my responsibility. I went off to college and started my career really to go do other things. When it came to me and it occurred that, wow, this industry is so special, and the transfer of limited service and extended stay in terms of a real product type started happening in the early 90s. I was so blessed in which to have the ability to have parents that dreamt the American dream, came here, took risks. I was on that journey, but then also, found an opportunity for them to also take that risk with me, so that I could take my own journey and live my own dream. And I think that's really at the heart of what families are all about, right? And when we think about our children, the most important thing to every one of us in this room, it's how to inspire them to not only dream big, but to also develop the work ethic, the tenacity, the tolerance for risk, understanding in the absence of risk there is no reward, and really understand the power of what their potential could be. So we're very proud of Arjun. We're excited about him being at Vanderbilt for the next 4 years. He's had a different life and his Hiroshi than we had. They've never grown up in hotels. They've never worked in hotels. But it was very important for my wife Reshma and I to teach them the same things that she grew up with and I grew up with, which is this power of hard work, this power of earning an income. And so, just as an aside, I've been very focused with both of our kids to find them mentors outside of parents, right? Because we can say things to our kids and then turn around and somebody else does the exact same thing, and we know who they're going to listen to most of the time. And so as a part of all of that, Arjun's had this, a number of great mentors, one in the financial service business, one that's in the franchise business outside the hotels. So in the summers of the last couple of years, he's had the opportunity to both work for hedge funds and wealth advisors as a high school kid. But the most powerful thing that he did was last summer. One of his mentors who has the rights to Wingstop throughout Atlanta and the Carolinas. And if you don't know what Wingstop is, it's basically a $350,000 box that's like 1,500 square feet. 75% of the revenues come from takeout, and it's all automated. The average unit volume for Wingstop is $1.1 million, and the average margins are 25%. Pretty simple math. And so he did the analysis in the corporate office about what all that meant and just kind of how the cash flows worked and which you could finance. But he spent last summer from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. working at a hedge fund, and then from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. frying wings in Wingstop for the entirety of summer. And the impact on his life in doing that, not only standing shoulder to shoulder with people that make their livelihood from doing this, but just kind of the power of the business model and learning it from an operating standpoint with a financial backstop. My personal goal and Reshma's goal for him and for Roshi, by the way, as an aside, I tell Arjun all the time, I said, listen, you're really smart, I think you're going to do great in your life, but remember to be nice to your sister, because I think there's one time that you might be able to, you might work with her one day. So, and she's a powerhouse. But, with Urgent, what we really want is for him to find his own way. Dad and Mom, they talk about, Mitt, you actually joined the business. I left and I went away and only came back because I realized the tremendous opportunity, and it felt like it was in my blood. For this next generation, they may or may not have those same kinds of experiences. Clearly they don't in terms of how to work it. But having the ability to go find their own way and understanding that what Reshma and I have is not theirs, right, which they do, but that they have the ability to come to us for the resources, much like, my parents provided us and their parents. Without my Baba and Ba and Babu, Dad would have had a ticket to come to the United States. And that's what we want to translate, that family matters more than everything. And always remember that on the front of your chest, right, it has your name, and that's where you go forward. But on the back of your jersey is our family name, and that's, always going to take you.
Absolutely. So, Mili, we run out of time, but Mili, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Women always have the last word.
I'm so sorry.
All right, so everyone knows that, we're young generation. We are so fortunate, as I mentioned before. When I bought my first property, my dad fully trusted me. He said, run the numbers. I said, but Dad, I don't have the down payment for the loan. He said, I'll lend it to you. And I said, no doubt, I promise that I will repay you when I sell that property, and I did this January. And so my advice is, for the first generation, trust your kids, allow them to make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, but that's brought me to where I am today. And for the second generation, get involved. I know we're always trying to talk about youngsters, but just like families have a succession plan, AAHOA also has a succession plan. And if we don't get involved now, when the baby boomers fade out, there's going to be no AAHOA. So we want the young professionals involved. We all know that women are the reason that all of these guys are successful, right? So pat yourself on the back and realize that you are just as empowered as any other man out there. Being a 28-year-old married female away from home, but running my own business, you can do it too. So please don't take yourself for granted. Teach your kids, allow them to make mistakes, and enjoy yourself while doing so.
Fantastic. So let's do another big round of applause for these panelists.